Riasa, good morning. How are you? We can't hear your voice. We can't hear your voice.
I was still setting up. I think you can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're about to go live. Just give us a second and then we are able to go live. Just give us a second.
Hello.
Teresa, just give us a moment as you can see most of the guys are logging in now. So just give us a second, we'll be live.
No problem. I'm also organizing myself a bit.
Okay, super, super, thank you. So how is Kampala, my friend?
Kampala is a bit wet and cold, almost like Nairobi.
Yes, at least the blessings are here finally.
I can imagine. How is my internet? Is it fine?
Yes, your internet speeds are super good. We can get you clearly.
I see.
Yeah, we can get you absolutely clearly. So we're just, you can see we are at 100. We're just waiting to in the next 1 minute to get where we are.
I see.
Yeah, but today is a good session. We are super proud to be hosted by you.
You are the guys hosting.
You know, English, they say it came with, yeah, with a boat to Mombasa. So
can you imagine?
Yeah. So. So 1 minute and 10, just 2 minutes, and then we kick off.
Okay.
Good, good. I think we are ready. We are ready for your delivery. Thank you, everybody who has managed to join this morning. It's our pleasure and honor to host Iriasa Mukibi, a legend in communication. And many people, young people and young professionals across Kenya in nearly 10 different campuses and colleges are really eager to hear what you have to say. My name is Duncan Karari. I'm program director for Tembeka. And every week we host a mentorship session for young people. And this week it's a pleasure and honor to talk about the topic of communication. Iriasa, welcome. I will not say more. I hand it over to you to deliver on the topic. Important skills for young communication professionals and people who are interested to join the media space, or those who are interested to join the branding space, or those who are interested to join corporate communication. We all of us play in the same field. So karibu sana Iriasa. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Duncan. In particular, thank you so much for the generous introduction. I heard you refer to me as a legend in communications. It's huge. Iriasa Mukibi is my name. I'm a journalist, basically, but I have done a lot of other stuff across the fields that Duncan has just mentioned. I am particularly happy that I was invited to speak to you about this subject. I have been in this space for a number of years, since 2004, when I started out as a journalist. And in journalism, I was everything from being a freelance journalist to staff reporter to managing editor of the Daily Monitor. Daily Monitor is the biggest independent newspaper in Uganda. And I left my position as managing editor for the weekends last year. And for the whole of this year, I have been doing a lot of other things. One of them being trying to start up an online publication. I do a lot of communications consulting, and not just for this year, but for all the years, even when I was a journalist. These things tend to cross-cut. I did some teaching at university, but that was very long ago, about 7 years ago. And I discovered I am perhaps not meant for that. This is why I need to point that out, because I have heard the fields being spelled out. And the topic I was invited to speak about is actually very cross-cutting. Because there are people who do communications at university as a full degree, even at postgraduate level, then journalism itself, then Duncan is talking about branding, that is, now that is marketing. Marketing and branding is the whole field of its own. So I was thinking, how do I blend all these into something meaningful for us to share within just the very limited time that we have? And I thought maybe I shouldn't be speaking about anything else, because I have been advised you are university students, and therefore you have very competent members of faculty who are discussing these issues, a lot more qualified than I am, perhaps, in many of the things, if you are talking academics. And so the theories and the principles that are at play have, I suppose, been discussed at length. And now what I have been invited to do, I guess, is to try and lay some form of bridge between theory and practice. And I hope that I may be able to do one or two things in that regard. That is what I was given as the topic, important skills for young communications professionals. But I was also told now that should cut across, even include journalists. There I am a lot more conversant than even the communications field in general, but also to include branding. So in brief, the way I look at it, I thought maybe we can do a very quick scan through these animal communications that you people have discussed at length, and then look at how the two perhaps intersect. Wow. I'm sorry, I don't know why that happened, but I went off. I don't know if I had started anything, if there's anything that you had, but very briefly, quickly, what I had said is I am looking to do a blend between the among the three subjects that I was advised to speak about: communications, journalism, and marketing or branding. If we can just concentrate on that. And I am thinking the way to approach it is to do a very quick scan through the three, the little theory that I thought relevant for this, and then concentrate most on branding as the subject. And if we move on, I was looking at communication, and I just want to suppose that that is not new to all of us. And it is not only for the profession. Communication as an act, if I may say, that involves the exchange of information, cuts across. Even animals communicate. It is not only for humans, but here we shall concentrate on human communication. And we are talking about the exchange of information. And you will have discovered already that, of course, there are so many elements, so many parties, and so many things have to be involved for the communication loop to be complete. Talking about now relaying information from the sender to the receiver. And there is a lot that that is involved, including the message, because that is what is relayed. And when the message is received, it is decoded by the person who's receiving it, who I have called the receiver there. And when they decode the information, then they are processing feedback. They have to feed you back and say maybe if they're agreeable, if they, whatever adjustment they may want, then comes in after they have received the message and decoded it, and then they feed you back. I am back. I don't know why the internet keeps jumping on and off. I thought the signal was strong where I am, but I was talking about verbal and non-verbal communication. By verbal, we are referring to the spoken word, and much of the communication that we carry out is actually verbal when you speak with somebody or a group of people. And now people have even used technology like we're using now, although it is proven to be problematic, to actually enhance verbal communication across borders in real time, which is a very good thing. And so verbal communication is very important. And actually, it is possible that most of the communication that we do is non-verbal, where the word is not spoken, but meaning is sent to people, whether through silence. Some people communicate by silence. You ask me a question and I keep quiet, and you draw inferences about what is it that I am saying. Sometimes communication can be, non-verbal communication can be by way of how someone looks at you. Their stare, someone looks at you like, it always happened to me when I was young, and my mother looks at me with that stern stare, and I know now I am in trouble. Something wrong has happened. So I just needed to say very quickly that communication can be verbal, but it cannot be non-verbal. And I needed also to, I thought it is important for us to remind ourselves about the 7 C's of communication, how some people call it. That when you communicate, the importance of communication, here we are talking about verbal communication now. When you communicate with people, whether you're a communications professional or a journalist, what you intend to achieve is for your message that you're trying to send across to be received. And therefore, for that to happen, you don't want the receiver of the message to be in doubt as to what it is that you're actually talking about. So communication has to be clear. When I send out a message, I need to be sure that the person receiving it will understand what I mean. When I mean that they should come, they should not set off to go. I want them to approach, come my side, and then if the information they receive is that I mean that they should walk away, then that communication is not effective. So it has to be clear so that there is no guessing as to what you mean, and that is important, particularly important for communication professionals. That for instance, in Uganda, there was a time that must have been 15 years ago, not 15 years ago, much earlier, in 2005 actually, when John Garang, the man who had led the liberation war in South Sudan, died, and in a plane crash, and the helicopter that killed him provided by the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. So the man died on his way flying back to Juba in South Sudan after the comprehensive peace agreement had just been signed between the two Sudans now. And so the communications minister then, the minister in charge of information and communication, he sent out a message to the country. I actually held a press conference and said, the president, General Yoweri Museveni, is devastated at the loss of his comrade, John Garang. And the president actually had to come out and clarify. Said, you see, I am a revolutionary and I cannot be, revolutionaries don't get devastated. I am concerned, I am saddened, but there is no way I can be devastated. We have fought wars, we have lost people, we know life is transient. So that, communications, because what the communications minister wanted to achieve there was to tell the entire country and of course the world that the president was deeply saddened and felt bad. Again, I had lost you. I don't know why. The internet has been very problematic, but I want to assume I am back now. And I was talking about clarity in communications and giving the example of the minister in Uganda who told the country that the president was devastated because of the loss. He had lost his friend or supposed friend who was the leader of South Sudan at the time. And when that happened, the President Museveni actually clarified the embarrassment of the minister that he was not devastated. Revolutionaries don't get devastated. So, sorry, I am trying to make sure that you hear me. Hello? Yes, I thought I had been lost. That is why I paused to make sure that I am not. All right, so we have lost a lot of time there. Sorry, it is because of the communication, which I was not sure was going through very well. But what I meant is with the 7 Cs, what I wanted to rush through, that you have to be clear as to what you mean, concise, and there I said, don't be long-winded. People do speeches that are winding. You want to say something, but then you add too many words. Others would say you are being verbose, saying too Yeah, sorry, the internet is proving a bit problematic, but I guess we are back now. And I was concluding with the 7 C's that you have to, the information that you impart needs to be concrete. So you give examples and illustrate what you mean. It definitely should be correct. Otherwise you lose credibility, coherent. It flows logically. You don't start in the middle, then go to the end, then come back to the start, and then you confuse the receiver of the information. In that case, you don't effectively communicate if you do that. And listeners or consumers of information, whether it is a news piece, whether it is a press release, don't like it if they want to go looking for what it is that you mean. So you say what you mean in order for you to communicate properly. And of course, it has to be complete so that I don't then stay there wondering, so what? Now that you have said A, B, C, D, what next? What followed? Know that if there is any information gap, even on your end, it is important, for instance, if you're writing a story, but also if you are doing a press release, for you to actually say that we don't know this yet. And some news organizations now encourage it. For instance, when we do a story, if it is breaking and or developing, we usually indicate that actually we indicate what we know and what we don't know. And what we don't know, then the reader, the receiver, consumer of the information is in no doubt as to what is not known. And then they have to be sure that you are working very hard to find out what it is that you don't know yet, and that when you find it out, you will impart it to them. And when that you create such a relationship between you and the consumer of the information, it is very, very likely that they will keep coming back to check if you have found something new. And of course, one needs to be courteous. You don't have to, even if you're a journalist, you don't have to actually use the wrong tone, if I may just use that. I know I am using the wrong word, but it is deliberate. And I don't know, am I sharing the screen? So that brings me to a topic that I wanted to talk about briefly, trying to contrast communications and journalism. Because communications as a profession has grown, and many organizations now almost operate newsrooms of their own. And one unfortunate thing from the point of view of journalism is that you find that media houses, some media houses, because the economy in the media has not been great in recent times. So you find that some media houses actually have newsrooms, communications departments with communications professionals that are more equipped, sometimes even more experienced, certainly better facilitated than those you would find in the newsroom. So there is that development that many people are aware of. And because of that, what has been happening is that very many journalists actually are leaving the newsroom and joining or going on to practice journalism by other means, that is by joining the communications field. So communications basically is about promoting the image of the organization that one may serve. It could be an organization, a corporate body, company, or NGO. It could also be a government. It could also be an individual. There are some individuals, personalities who are big enough to engage communications professionals. They could be celebrities, like footballers, they could be musicians. So whichever principle that you serve in a communications role, your job is to promote their image. It is not necessarily because people thought communications is just PR, and that PR is about telling lies. It is not always necessarily the case. It is also about imparting useful information that people may need to use or to know about certain organizations, especially governmental bodies, for instance. People want to know, let's say, about their tax obligations and how to meet them. People want a lot of other things that they want to find out about how the government works and how it may serve them better. And it is the role of the communications people to impart it. The unfortunate thing in our part of the world, if I can just speak about my country, Uganda, is when someone gets into a communications role for a government agency, they tend to believe that all they have to do is to protect the image of the government, to ensure that the government is not attacked, that the government is perceived in a positive light, which is usually not necessarily the case because there are so many other things that people need to know. On the other hand, whereas the communications professional exists especially to promote the image of the principle that they serve, or whoever that principle may be, the journalist exists to play watchdog, to ask the hard questions, to mark wreck, to dig into the mark and see what is being hidden. Because what happens is that people who are entrusted with properties of the public, people who are supposed to serve the public good and therefore are given resources and power to do that, in many cases actually abuse those resources and power. And journalism exists principally to check abuses of power, of resources, to ensure that those who have them, who hold power in public trust, are actually accountable. That is why a lot of the journalism is about the government and those people in power who have been elected, those who have sat public service interviews and have been appointed and assigned public responsibilities, but also corporate bodies like Coca-Cola, which are private companies, but are serving the public to ensure that they don't cheat the public, that they actually sell what they say they sell, and they actually extract value which is commensurate to the value that they give to their customers. So journalism, in essence, is supposed to be an important public service. And some people have gone far enough as to say that journalism is the fourth estate. So if they are talking about the executive, the legislature, the courts, that's the judiciary, then they say journalism should follow immediately after. It's the fourth estate because it is important, and even if journalists don't have guns, even if we don't have courts to enforce compliance with the law and regulations, it is important that this information is shared. In case of abuse, then public bodies may take it up, but also people fear just for reputational purposes. So they say, if the journalists say, I am not what I say I am, for instance, a public official, we had a minister not about 20 years ago now, who introduced a bill in Parliament looking to ban drinking beyond midnight, but also before midday. And people were discussing that. Of course, it don't go through. And by coincidence, by the way, there is currently another bill about regulating alcohol consumption in our country. But then that same minister was found drunk. Actually, he failed to drive back home. He engaged in drink driving, but also he drank so much and beyond the hours that he was suggesting. And it was a big news story in the newspapers, and it was discussed on radio and TV stations. At that time, social media wasn't a big thing. And the minister was actually forced to resign. And the issue was, why do you say one thing in public and then you do the opposite in private, where you think people will not see you? Just enforcing accountability and ensuring that people do what they say is a very important function of journalism. So if journalism is there to ask hard questions, to play watchdog and macrake, dig beneath the surface, dig through the muck to see what is there and actually expose it, report it, and report it accurately so that people who may need that information can get it and use it in whichever way they want to use it. Maybe I should say in whichever legal way they want to use it. If that is what journalists do, I think it is easy to understand that in a number of cases, there are going to be conflicts between journalists and communications professionals, because communications professionals are there to promote the image, to ensure that their principles have a good image. So if the journalists are there to watch over those same principles, and where those principles actually go wrong, the journalists report it, you'll clearly see that it is likely there's going to be a conflict between journalism and communications. So the role of the communications professional, for one to be very successful, they try as much as they can to instrumentalize journalists. To instrumentalize, yeah, sorry, I use a funny word, but what I'm trying to say is to use journalists as an instrument of their communication. So when a young reporter, or any reporter indeed, goes out to speak with a communications person about a subject that may adversely affect the image of the organization or individual for whom the communications professional, it is very likely that the communications person will try to instrumentalize, to use that same journalist as an instrument to actually, instead of writing negative information about the same person, they can do this through even outright deceit. If they find out that the journalist hasn't done their homework very well, the communications person can lead you down the garden path and provide information that can even be misleading, but very convincing, so that you end up now getting a very different impression of what it is that you knew. But for a communications professional to be able to use a journalist as an instrument, the communications person must themselves be very expert in what they do. And to be expert means that somebody has taken their subject very seriously. You have understood what journalists do, how they do it, what loopholes there may be, so that you may exploit them to your advantage. And that means that you have to read as or even more than the journalists for you to be able to stay on top. I don't know how you may plug the gap so that information does not leak, especially now in the age of social media, where people can even leak information through pseudo accounts so that you will not know who has said what to who. So all that is important. And I just prepared in the next slide, talking about the importance of reflecting on the intersection between journalism and communication. And it doesn't matter where you serve. Of course, in the media, we as journalists, we like to feel good about it. We know that communications people are paid better than us. When we're in the newsroom, it is very likely that the news reporter will be paid less than the person doing communications, let's say for the Parliament of Uganda, or the presidency, or the ministry, or a powerful corporate body, be it a company or a civil society organization. So because they get paid better, I think journalists try to compensate that by saying, okay, those guys are bad people. They are sellouts. They exist to fight, to defeat the journalism, the profession of journalism, and journalism is there to to change the world. So it is very, very common that we journalists look at ourselves as change makers, as people who exist to actually make the world better. And in many cases, you'll find communications professionals, because in many cases, actually, they are forced to lie on behalf of their employers. So they are more likely to be accused of being sellouts, of being even unprofessional, sometimes unpatriotic than the rest. So that is, and the debate between journalists and communications professionals, whether one is evil and the other is a saint, has been ongoing for a very long time. I don't think yes. So where we got interrupted, I was talking about actually finalizing on the intersection between journalism on the one hand and the communications on the other. And things are important. And what I wanted to pay more attention to today is that has to do with branding, because whether you're a communications professional or a journalist, branding is very, very important. You have to have built a personal brand that is powerful enough for people to recognize that you are the right person to do the job. If you don't do that, then it is very, very unlikely that those that people are going to people think of you seriously, or if you're a communications professional, it's very unlikely that people are going to hire you to do their communications, because one of the things that people will be looking for, corporate organizations, even government will be looking for, is the credibility of this person. Is this communications professional or journalist able to articulate our issues? Do they have sufficient understanding of the things that are happening in the country and all over the world? And do they have the skills that are necessary to explain, sometimes even cajole and convince our publics, whatever they are in public administration? You sometimes talk about publics to mean because there are different segments of people that you want to target, but whoever they are, the question lingers in the minds of those who are hiring whether this person they want to engage as a communications professional has sufficient wherewithal, has the clout, has the credibility and capability to explain, to actually come up with aggressive, meaningful communication strategies to be able to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And what they want to achieve is to promote their image. And by promoting image, they want to be viewed favorably. If it is the Coca-Cola company, they want the public to think that even if people say they warn us against taking soda and all that and stuff, they want the public to think that these people don't just care about their profits that they make out of selling us soft drinks that may kill us, but that actually they even care about our health, that soda is not as dangerous cumulatively to somebody as other people, even doctors, have said. So a communications person who achieves that, not a false image, but a positive one about their principle, is the one that they'll be looking for. And that person has to have sufficient skill. And for someone to be thought about as having sufficient skill, then that same person must have taken a lot of time to cultivate their own image and their own brand. And what I have said about the communications person is also true with a journalist, because as a journalist, all you say is your name. That is why when you write in the newspaper, for instance, I write something and then I put by Erias Mchevi. So that what I am telling you, what the newspaper is telling you, is that this is your journalist who has been around for all this length of time, and this journalist has the capacity to explain, to report to you this subject in the best possible way and give you the information that you require. That is important. And on TV, there are people who will go. I have seen principals. You go and ask a news source whether they want to appear on TV. I have, during my journalism career, I have done both TV and newspapers. And there are people you will talk about when you produce a show. And I mean, you talk to when you produce a show and ask them to come, and they will be the first ones to ask, who is hosting me? And they are going to develop ideas about which show host they think is ignorant or asks questions that don't make sense, or will not give them sufficient time to explain their viewpoint, or will be biased, whatever. So that is why integrity and definitely then the brand is extremely important. If your brand is not good, then it is very unlikely that people are going to invite you for a speaking engagement somewhere, or people will want to listen a lot what you're saying, for people who want to read what you have said, and therefore it definitely will affect which person will want to hire you at all, which person or company. I don't know. I threw there some random statistics before I leave this to go on to branding. And I know you listen to news, you watch a lot of what's going on around the world, whether it's on social media, traditional TV, or the newspapers. And the trends in the journalism and communication sector, the way it has been going, some people used to laugh at us that, you see, you people who have been in the traditional media are dinosaurs and you are about to die, because newspapers had started to die elsewhere in the world, especially the developed world. And the trend eventually came down here. I edited, for instance, the weekend papers at Monitor. When I started out as editor, I was appointed editor in 2006 of the weekend newspapers. And at that time, every day, Saturday and Sunday, we would sell at least 25,000 copies. And one of the most painful things that happened to me, that will happen to every editor, because you get the numbers as they come through every weekend. And so you would see a steady decline in the number of copy sales. I think now they sell about 10 to 12,000 from 25,000 just about 6 years ago. And it is very easy. The easy answer may be that what you publish these days is worse than what it were in those days. That is a possibility. But what is even more important is that less and less people are reading newspapers. And we used to tell ourselves when we were in the newsroom that you see at Monitor, that some of our readers actually have died, because there are people who, out of habit, they were civil servants, maybe they were successful lawyers and others in private business, and part of their routine was to buy a newspaper every morning. And they grew with that habit and even took it into retirement. But now, when those people retired and no longer had income to buy or died, they were not replaced in many cases, because you young people don't buy newspapers in general, most of them. We have done surveys here. And for instance, the last survey we did when I was at Monitor, and we were asking people at university, across 10 universities in Uganda, how many times they bought newspapers. One amazing statistic was that 96% of them told us they had never used their money to buy a newspaper. And these were people at university. So very many people, when I was at university, actually, I would spare a lot of my pocket money for newspapers, especially the weekend ones. And not just papers from here, but even Nation, when it was brought in Kampala. There was a man called Wahome Mutahi, for instance, a columnist on Sunday, and I always did read what they wrote, using my own money to buy. These days, we found our survey wasn't scientific, because we were just asking people. We asked a good number. Across the 10 universities, we asked over 1,200, and out of them, only 4% actually said they have ever used their own money to buy a newspaper. And that told us that it is going to be very, very difficult in the years to come to find, to sustain the business of printing newspapers, even in Uganda. The projection had been that we would be around for a little longer printing, because internet penetration is not that deep, and there are many people who are still enculturated to read newspapers. But we saw that, and it is very scary. But that said, so we thought that now the audiences have moved and they have gone onto social media, and therefore people who do streaming, who run So basically, big tech companies are going to be the biggest employers for journalists and communications professionals. They are going to be making money, and that is where the future is. And that is why I was thinking about those statistics, and I just checked all this month. There were reports in the United States that Amazon is actually planning to lay off 10,000 people, 10,000 employees. They are just planning, but Meta, the owners of Facebook, have laid off 11,000. And when Elon Musk bought Twitter the other day, he just went on rampage, sending out people, and now the number that they have given that he has sent away is 37,000. And these are people who are doing new media jobs, not just in communications, but also from the tech side, trying to build things, algorithms, and everything else. Netflix, who are into streaming, and they had been flying, and we thought they were going to kill Appointment TV very soon, also did lay off hundreds of people. I think in the last swoop, 300 employees were sent away. Maybe now a total of 750 have been laid off by Netflix. So there is still a lot of conversation about where journalism is going and communication, but especially journalism in this case. And there are people, there is very good news. On the other hand, is that it has never been simpler to set up a media company now, because there are some one-person media organizations. I again went off, sorry, but what I was saying is that there's good news even when there are a lot of disruptions in the media. The good news is that everything is being broken and being rebuilt. And that means that you, the young people, are at the center of the activity. It is possible for someone now to set up a news company that is run by just 2 or 3 people, even one person, a blog or YouTube channel and whatever, and then earn thousands of dollars actually per month from doing that. So it is happening, and there is a lot more innovation that is going on in the media. When I knew that is happening, and I thought I was a dinosaur, I was becoming a dinosaur because the things that I learned long ago were not happening. I was looking around to see what it is that I can do to refresh what I do, and so I enrolled for a master's program, the Emily program at the Aga Khan University in Nairobi. I have been on that program now for 1.5 years, trying to look at managing change and innovation in the media, because I thought it is important, but it can't be as important to me because I'm now 43 years old this month. It can't be as important to you as you. As it is supposed to be to you, who is just starting out in this industry, and you just want to think very deeply about what you want to do. You want to go and get employed in a traditional media setting and then wait for when it will be shut down? Are you in position to think through things, innovate, and get into new media businesses where you can be an entrepreneur and a journalist, a communications professional? As a field, you will know better than I do. And I just needed to move very quickly now to building a brand. If you want to be an innovator in the communications, journalism sector, you need, even more than others perhaps, to build a brand. To build a brand so that when people talk about you, your reputation precedes you, as the English people say. People just know that, when you mention this person. As I say this now, I know that there are people, communications professionals or people in other fields who you are thinking about. When they talk about telecommunications, which name springs up? When they talk about TV, think about first. When they talk about hotel and hospitality industry, transport, any industry, you just think about it and imagine how far people go to. Yes, before the latest interruption, I was talking about building a brand and saying that some people are so successful at doing this that actually when they mention any industry, it is very likely that each one of you will think about one person immediately. And that means that that person is very successful in building a brand. So you also need to build your own brand. If you are not branded, if you don't brand yourself, it is very, very difficult for you to say that you succeed in journalism, but also the professional communications sector. It is going to become, I think, a lot harder as work becomes a lot more individualized, because media has now become a lot smaller segmentation, because the big companies are failing in many cases. They are becoming smaller, they are making less and less money, and more people are breaking away to establish their own. I said vegetable, please. I'm live. So, sorry, some little interruption there. What I want to use the remaining minutes to do is to take you through a plan, one plan that you may use to build your own brand. And if you say that I want to build a brand, what things do you look at? And I just wanted to give you an outline, and you may want to start by analyzing yourself. I don't know whether you know yourself enough, but if you want to build a brand, you don't want to start building a brand and then you get in the middle and you find you're actually not that person that you want to become. So it is important that you analyze yourself and understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your values, what things actually inspire you, what do you want to do. That is very important. You have analyzed yourself, and it is also very important to be looking out to somebody. Say, I want to be a journalist, but now which type of journalist do I want to be? There's perhaps a name in your mind. So that name, say, this person does these things and whatever, I want to be that person. Not that person because you're a different person, but to be like that person as much as possible. It's always better to have a role model and then aspire to beat them. And then say, okay, now that person has already lived their life and life has to be progressive, so I have to be bigger than that person. So it is important for you to identify a role model and then you do your own character analysis to see what is it, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then what things inspire you, what do you like, and then proceed and work on those. Having known having done your personal analysis of your character, now you're asking what you want to be known for. When you are not in the room, what do you expect? What would you like people to say in brief? That is very, very important. It is also a continuation of character analysis, but you are now defining your goal in life. That you see, I am here at university, I'm about to get out and start work. What are those things that I want to accomplish by the time I retire? When I die, what do I want for people to write in the newspapers about me, where I will not be and I won't be able to influence them? What do I want my children to tell their friends about me when they are asked? That is very important. And what you admire, I already talked about it. Who you admire, their qualities. That, of course, it is important that they are a well-known person, but that also to be taken in perspective, because some of us are too self-absorbed, too inward-looking for us to want to be famous, like politicians, like celebrity journalists or whatever. You may just want to be a journalist who sits down and does their work quietly, and you're not always making noise about yourself. But even that, even if you are mild-mannered, it is important that people recognize your presence. So your brand may be that that person actually is mild-mannered. That is a very concrete journalist who knows his stuff, who asks the right questions in the most objective way, and makes sure to extract the best answers and presents their work in the best way possible. But even while doing all that, they are not self-absorbed. They don't be the story. That is possible. And there, some people brand themselves by prioritizing work and knowing that the collective is bigger than the individual. Other people are more individualistic in approach, and they are there to rise and build the brand. And so it is not that you should try to change what you are to something different, because that is now going to be very problematic. When you, let's say, all of a sudden want to become very talkative, this person who is shouting on top of their voice and whatever, and then you actually are not in nature. It may actually not succeed. So who is my target audience? That is important for a communications person, for a journalist. So get out to do journalism, and you are doing your branding. You are branding yourself, personal self. Are you branding yourself so that, let's assume you are employed, your employer can recognize that you are an important cog in the wheel, or future employer, so that they can see that this is a different person, or clients that you may want to serve, if you whatever. So I'm just there talking off my head, asking and saying you should sit down and ask yourself, I am doing my branding, but then when I target, we should recognize that I am a brand. That is important. If you want to be a public intellectual, you are definitely targeting the public. You want members of the academia. You want people in the civil society, people in the civil service, people in politicians. I was saying that you are branding yourself in relation to the person or the community that you want to recognize you, and out of which you might get the most value. If you're that means that a politician will brand themselves differently from a communications professional or a journalist, or let's say an engineer or a doctor. But all of them need to build a brand, and that is important. Then what objectives? That is very, very important, that you set objectives for yourself and know that these are the things that I want to do, and you must have come across that acronym. Usually discuss about setting objectives, that when you set objectives, they are supposed to be SMART, that they should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, so that you know that let's say I want to do, let's say your objective is to, let's say, increase presence on social media. So now you want to study what is it on social media that I can do to increase my presence. I have seen a strategy that young people use now, and it is not the best of strategies. And of course, professionals may not want to use it. People who want to be influencers in Uganda, I see many accounts that I keep blocking. People, they share sexualized content and a lot of things, plastic, platonic things that they think are going to attract people. You find someone's Twitter account with more pictures of themselves than other content, than text. Someone has never made any argument or suggestion that may, that of course will suit a certain profile of a person. And they say, okay, I am into showbiz. I want to do this and that. I just want to collect funds and followers. That is on the one hand. As a communications professional, what is your plan? If you want, definitely you must develop a social media presence, but how do you build it? And when you build it, what things do you do? You may say that I am going, let's say, to start a weekly post about something I have researched on in this field. It could be in the field of science, it could be in the field of public affairs, international affairs. That you say, I am going to research, to read different publications, come up with certain content that I then share. That I then share with my publics. That is very, very important. And that is what I'm talking about as the plan. And you want to be talking about, have that plan in mind of how you're going to brand yourself. You already developed your objectives, and then move forward to measuring. Once you have set objectives and you have a plan in mind and you're implementing it, you have to be able to measure it and say, okay, I set, when you're setting objectives, they should be measurable to the extent that you say, okay, in the next 3 months, I want to get this number of followers. I want to be invited to talk shows, Twitter spaces, this and that. Let's say 3 Twitter spaces in this period of time. And I am going deliberately to talk to people who host Twitter spaces and convince them that I actually have something to offer on this or that. I am going to write an article and share it as a thread, let's say on Twitter, if you don't have media space, so that when you show up tomorrow to ask for a job in journalism, you can tell the editor or whoever is hiring that you were successful in growing your Twitter brand by developing stories that captivated people and increased your following to 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, a million, 50,000, whatever number. You're saying, when I share my original stories, my original journalistic work that I did at university, when I post it on Twitter, people share it. This one, for instance, was shared 500 times. And when you can demonstrate that, now the person hiring a reporter is looking at a big brand in journalism. And they will say, yes, this is the person we want, because they know what they're talking about. And you're saying, you see, I have engaged in a number of there's a Twitter spaces, and here I argued as follows. I did this. I have managed to influence people in this kind of way, whether it is speaking engagements in physical spaces, they could be virtual spaces like Twitter spaces, one like this. So it doesn't matter what it is that you come up with, but the important thing is you are trying to measure success and say, okay, now I have decided to build my brand. I have my objectives and my plan in place. And this is how I measure it. That every week I will send out a 500 word or 1,000 word story on Twitter, broken into, let's say, threads. And I want this number of people to share it or retweet or like it. And if you succeed in doing that, then you are actively building a brand. And that brand, if you have worked hard and meticulously on it, then you may want to decide, you may actually have a choice to make. Having built your brand in journalism, then you decide, do I want to go and be employed in a media house? Do I want to remain as an independent journalist doing my things, and people come to me, I can sell to them, whatever, but I also now earn from big tech and all that. And that is very important. I don't know how to stress that. And definitely as we head to the end, because I see our time is almost up, but it is important we are looking at the resources. So you are looking at what do you need in terms of resources to succeed. And if it is training that you need, if it is data that you need to watch YouTube videos, because there are thousands, actually millions of videos on YouTube that can teach you too many things. YouTube is one channel. Now I like it that Tembeka has started this one, it's another. I want to assume there's a series of lectures that have been talking about different things. And if you want to say, now I am going to use my time. Time is a resource itself. To use my time to go and read and listen to what people are saying. If I want to be successful in communications, in journalism, what are people saying? What are successful journalists saying? So those resources, you put them down. They may include time, they may include money, they may include an accountability partner. That last one is important. Accountability partner, as in you look for someone who is also actively working at a branding plan of their own, and you share your goals. You say, this is what I want to do. So this person can now come back to you and say, you said you're supposed to do this by this time. How far? And you do the same. That would be very, very important. And coming to the end, it has been a pleasure for me. I thank Tembeka for this. I hope this has been helpful despite the disturbances. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, everybody who joined the session today. I'm told my mic was muted. I do hope you join us again in the coming week, and thank you so much for today's session. Thank you, Riasa. Thank you, everybody who got some time to join in. And we look forward to giving you more educative content, more industry leaders to deliver the talk to you. If you have challenges giving us comments, or if you have challenges in asking questions, you're not able to, our website has a contact us button. Just go in there and contact us, be able to pass those comments and concerns to Riasa. We pass our love and greetings from Nairobi to all parts of East Africa for those who joined in. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday, same time, 10 in the morning, for the next mentorship session. Thank you. Goodbye.